All right, we have a topic today, and it's social media usage and how it can pull you in and cause you to be desensitized to things that are happening in the world around you. An easy example would be everything that happened with Charlie Kirk recently. It's awful that somebody had to die because of whatever the person felt was right in the situation. Uh, what do you think of that, Kevin?
Yeah, the Charlie Kirk assassination, I think that hits us very strongly on kind of like a global scale, just because for the United States at least, it's kind of the first assassination of our generation. Yeah, I know it's a crazy thing to say, but that is really the most recent assassination that has upset a decent amount of people. I don't even know if that's a good way to say it, but
No, I think that's I didn't even think of that perspective, but yeah, I mean, one of the things when obviously this has been brought up in probably every single friend group, um, somebody brought up like, I wonder how people felt when it happened to like JFK. Where was it as polarizing as it is now, where you have people who celebrate the death and people who are feeling awful about it, or was it different? And that would have to be something that I'm sure there's information online and the general public's reaction to his assassination, but sticking to topic here, it that is a good way of putting it. It's the first assassination that we, in terms of Kevin and I, have ever, and anybody probably in our age group has ever experienced. It's scary, I guess, to put it really simply. It's just scary. It's weird.
yeah, brings a lot of fear into you. It's when you hear about it in history class, you really aren't so phased by it. Kind of bored.
Right. Yeah.
It's just like, oh, that sucks. But now that it happened in real
Exactly. Yeah.
time and that is history being made, it feels very different. It feels very odd.
Something, yeah, like something larger than life just happened. Um, and I mean, to be clear, Kevin and I aren't even political people. I I don't think I've ever gone out of my way to watch the news. I don't even think Kevin's really done that either.
No, I have never voted either.
Yeah, me neither. I'm not a vote. I've never voted. Don't really register. I've never registered to vote. Uh, I just neither of us are into politics. We know how we know how heated and convoluted all that kind of stuff can be. But yeah, I think it's definitely an important topic to talk about. Not necessarily the I think the level of effect that modern events have on people has sort of died out. People are kind of desensitized to when very extreme things happen, and instead they react to it in a way that quote unquote this benefits what I personally think, or see how I personally see the world. I think a lot of that just comes from avid social media usage. You sit there and you're looking at posts all the time, and you're probably following things that you like and people that agree with your perspective. So you're constantly hearing my perspective is right, period. No matter what, it's the objective reality of the world. So then when somebody says something completely opposite to you, especially if it's extreme or radical, it can set you off in a way of literally seeing the person or organization as, for lack of a better word, like a terrorist. Like this person needs to be dealt with.
I think that social media, the way that most platforms keep you engaged is that they play with, I wouldn't say they play with their emotions in a literal way, but they do manipulate how we feel and how we interpret information. Um, and they literally have psychologists or psychiatrists. I'm not sure what you would call those roles at those big social media companies that research on how to engage you the most and how to keep you on the platform. So I'm not very surprised that we've become so much more desensitized from social media, and that we don't like we hear a tragic event such as Charlie Kirk, and then we kind of shove that to the side and we think in this binary way of what benefits us and if it does or doesn't. And I guess it's just like, for instance, I think Charlie Kirk was probably pushed on certain algorithms in both directions. Doesn't matter what side of the political compass you're on. If you're a left leaning or right leaning, he was pushed you either in two different ways, either to get you upset or either to motivate you in some other capacity. So I don't know. It's a consequence of those systems trying to keep you engaged, to where you're in this detached state of always being upset, or I'm not sure what the other word you would use for Charlie Kirk in particular if you were a conservative. I don't know if you were motivated or reassured. Maybe reassured is the word you use. What do you think?
Like inspired, maybe.
Inspired.
Like I feel like a lot of people feel inspired by. But I mean, even if let's completely tear this apart from politics, you could say somebody like I don't know, Andrew Tate, I Show Speed, Kai Cenat. It's like people just feel inspired by specific people just based on what they're doing. It doesn't really have to. I don't even know how to. Yeah, I could see how what you're saying is kind of like a difficult thing to iterate or convey or whatever.
Yeah, it's
not that you. I can't even think of the word. Yeah.
I'm not trying to support or even denounce whatever he was doing, but it's in the fact that people have felt in two different ways, completely two polarizing ways of being inspiring, or being inspired is a perfect word to use. That's usually what they say now after what the president has said and other groups of people have said, that he was an inspiration, and there's other groups of people who thought he was I'm not sure what those type of people would think, but just not
good riddance.
Things. Yeah, good riddance is a good way. That's what they say. And it's very strange in how polarizing his death was, and how there's such a dichotomy in how people feel about it.
For those listening, I think it's important to emphasize that Kevin and I are not only involved in social media, in politics, but we're also not involved in social media. So this perspective of being kind of like, what the hell is going on, is coming from people who aren't involved in whatever you want to call those two things put together. It's to us, since we've been disconnected from it for so long, to us it comes off as social media, to me at least, comes off as a constant battle for being reassured that your perspective of the world is correct or is like the right way to go throughout your life. It's just an echo chamber. I realize now that when it comes to friends or people that I meet that use social media, their way of operating is very heavily based around, is what I'm saying or how I'm acting appealing to other people? And I could see that in myself back in the day when I used to use social media a lot, and that no longer exists. I don't really care if I appeal to other people. I'm just doing my own thing, and enjoying it, and figuring out my life on my own. And then when it comes to politics, I was never into politics, and I don't think I ever will be, simply because, again, I think politics is just a worldwide format that's like a translated social media into some kind of like old adult or like archaic world, I guess you could almost say. It operates the same. Everybody is still lying to each other or being rude to each other just because they see things different or dress different or whatever. But it's just old people doing it now instead of people in high school. So that's my perspective on that.
Yeah, I don't know how it is. Maybe not worldwide, just because American politics is just so polarizing.
It is, yeah. That would be a better way of putting it. Yeah.
Yeah. But again, American politics does bleed into different countries. Like I know, um, weirdly enough, I know Australia keeps, you know, they keep a what's the word that you would use? They keep a tab on our politics pretty frequently, and they do reports in their country about our politics. And other countries do the same thing. I know. Um, sometimes I'll see it when I'm passing my living room, where there'll be like Turkish news, and they're talking about like a Trump policy that he's putting out, or something
Yeah.
they were talking about Charlie Kirk on there, and it's like you know, I understand that it is a news story, but it doesn't really seem very relevant to this country. So I guess saying it that on a worldwide scale is not wrong. It's not wrong at all. American politics are a very
Well, yeah. I mean,
huge thing.
you could almost gamify it and say, like, imagine you're playing Civilization.
Yeah,
You need to know what other cultures are doing and how they operate, especially if you're planning on you have borders, right? And people come in and you have different cultures. You want to understand why those cultures may act or be like. You make tourist areas. That's a good way of putting it. Like, I feel like every country has tourist areas. Like United
Oh, yeah.
States, everybody loves New York or New York City or California or Vegas.
LA. Yeah.
Those are like tourist areas, you know what I mean? They're made to be grand, look absolutely insane. It's like, wow, all the buildings are 800 billion miles tall and made of glass, and everybody's just gambling thousands of dollars at the casino. And it's like, well, no, that's about what, a few percent of the United States is like that. But
Yeah.
it's fun, and it shows you what that country's culture is about, or what it's mainly based on, at least in their history or whatever. So
Right.
it makes sense. You want to know what other cultures are like. So let's say the rate of tourists, and I'm just gonna make something up here, in Germany is like 60% Americans. They're gonna have a tourist area where it's very like, oh, Americans like this stuff, so put a bunch of that there, and then there you go.
It's somewhat friendly to them. You're saying.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
A more an easier transfer, you know what I mean? I feel like sometimes people go through like a culture shock. You go to like people who travel for like helping like third world countries and stuff like that, where they travel over and like help them out, and serve as a middleman to give them money or supplies or food or whatever to help them.
This whole revolves back down to the American politics and the polarization of it on a worldwide scale. It may not be such a crazy thing for arbitrarily, let's say, German people probably don't care about what political sides we have, or like stupid little nitbit agendas that one side may have or not, but on an American scale and in the United States, the politics are very, very polarizing, and it's something that I cannot relate with. It's something that I probably guess you can't relate with.
No, not at all.
It's a very strange thing that we don't have much to say about that part, because obviously you can witness it. This is a part of witnessing it, because this is one of the extreme polarities of it, because like it or not, this was somewhat politically motivated, the Charlie Kirk assassination. It might be completely politically motivated in some way.
Yeah,
and it's in the sense that it's so polarizing that there was murder involved. There was death.
Right. I guess if we had to boil this down to like a too long, didn't want to listen, it's crazy that even in death nowadays, it somehow gets amalgamated or turned into, how does that benefit me? That's all I care about. Or how does that hurt my perspective? And although your world perspective and how you see the world is important, I think human life is placed above all else. It's shitty.
It's very sad to say that, because I don't know if it's because of social media, but there's no doubt that it plays a significant role in how we have desensitized, not even the word to use in this case, but have devalued the importance of individual life and the impact that a singular person could have. And there's some people, without a doubt, that you don't really miss. There's dictators and figures in history or in modern history that, okay, well, these people were just genuinely evil people. They had the same idea. It's like they did not have any regard for human life. But
Right.
because of social media, the polarization between, okay, this person is, genuinely evil and is not deserving of life is blurred with the idea that, or it's blurred, it is completely blurred between people who determine if somebody does deserve life or not. So people with the Charlie Kirk thing, and there's probably more people who have been killed on both sides of the political compass, where one side is like, oh, well, it's good riddance, as you said earlier. Like, the person wasn't necessarily, you may have
Yeah.
not liked that person, you may have not liked their opinions, and you may even thought their opinions could have been harmful, but they were no deserving of death.
Yeah, I remember I saw something I think it was yesterday where somebody was talking about, like this is blowing up and everybody knows about it, but did you know this happened yesterday, or did you know this happened 2 days ago or a week ago, and all that kind of stuff. And I think that is like another really big thing where you can almost consider news like another I think the terminology you would use is like horsehead when it comes to pulling the chariot of, I don't even know what word you'd call people who are just too over involved in things that are outside of themselves. Like a chariot, imagine it as horses pulling a chariot, and everybody's in the chariot, and the chariot is full of people who are just over involved in all this. And I would say you could consider news or news outlets as a separate horsehead from politics. One and the same, but separate solely because the original point being somebody saying, did you know this happened, or did you know this happened, whatever. Equally important things, but you never heard about it because news outlets or news sources didn't care. They didn't see it as important because it didn't benefit them. So that's where you can almost also take it away from, okay, as a population on an individual level, we're all kind of fucking up because we're staring at social media all the time. But also as a population or as organizations, when it comes to news outlets, we're fucking up because people are so absorbed in what's next, what's big, how can I make more money and get more eyes on me. They see Charlie Kirk and they do a full-blown sprint with it, and everybody sees it and it's really big and everybody gets to hear about it. But when it comes to what they view as less important, but it could be literally the exact same thing happen, nobody hears about it because they just don't care. They know it wouldn't bring attention and nobody wants to hear about it. And that's, in my opinion, equally awful. The idea of news outlets doing that. It's weird. I don't. The whole thing is just like this really weird, convoluted. It's almost like a video game, you could say. It's like you would hear about that kind of thing and they didn't cover that. Why? Oh, they just didn't find it important. What do you mean? The same thing happened, but just to a different group of human beings. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that is a huge problem with the media, where certain stories there's probably countless of incidents that has happened that you probably do want to know about, but are not shown to light because it's just, whatever the reason may be, it wasn't considered worthy enough to be broadcasted. Or maybe worthy is not even the word to use, because sometimes things are just not told because of some sort of agenda, or it doesn't look
Right.
Somebody doesn't look good. If you something along those lines, which is more conspiratorial. Not in a realistic sense. That probably does happen, but can't say that it does without any evidence. But for a fact that these media conglomerates determine what stories are going to make them the most money, because they're a business at the end of the day. They're not going to pick something that I didn't even know what's going on? I forgot where. I think it's Nepal. There's like a whole revolution going on in Nepal. I didn't know anything about it.
Yeah, we don't
Nothing.
hear anything about
You
it.
don't hear anything
Like,
about it.
why isn't that important? You know what I mean? That's revolutions are universal. You know what I mean? That's a human thing. That has nothing to do with culture or this and that. It's human. You know, you hear the word revolution and you're like, oh damn, like what's going on there? But we don't hear about it because our news sources don't find that important. It's not exciting for us.
And what's pretty interesting about that revolution itself, it's actually our generation revolting and succeeding in that revolt, which
Oh
is
really?
the old Generation Z. Yeah, it's a very, very interesting thing when you really think about it.
What's the revolution like? What are they
Not sure.
protesting?
No, other than the classic corruption and greed from um, the government, I'm not too sure what they are fighting for. Literally, I didn't look into it too much, and I'm sure if it was covered more and was more of a big thing, I would have known. But that serves to show that they have a lot of control, and thankfully enough, and the pro of social media is that we have, because of social media, we can figure that stuff out. Let's say we didn't have that. Let's say if it was like the 80s or the 90s where that wasn't a thing. Maybe not the 90s because internet was a thing you probably could find out if you wanted to. But let's say the 80s where it was very rare or even impossible to figure that stuff out, there would be no choice. You would only be informed of what's been told to you. So
Right.
ironically enough, we went to in a circle and saying, "Oh, social media is good for information in that way."
Well, it's kind of like the comparison I always make is like water. Uh, it's fine. I think social media is great for its own. I mean, technically speaking, playing video games online is a form of social media, right? It's a social medium between you and I that's connecting us and allowing us to interact, right? So even gaming can be bad for some people. There's people who are addicted to it and can't stop playing. It's, again, I think everything will always go back to extremism. Don't get addicted, don't get over involved, don't get extremely into it. Have other things that make up your personality. I think having politics or social media or your Instagram followage or whatever else as a core part of your personality, I think it's ugly. And I think that's the case for a lot of people. I think it's important to have a cause, have a passion, have something you care about a lot, but stick to that passion, stick to that cause. Don't maybe not base your entire life around something that's out of your control or something that turns your eyes red in the face of somebody who doesn't agree with you. Be open to somebody disagreeing. I think we lose a lot of value and efficacy as individuals when we're not able to talk to someone who doesn't have the same perspective as us. I think it's important to listen to them and be open to changing your perspective. Hear them out. And you don't even have to agree. Just be, oh, okay, I understand your perspective. I don't agree, and that's okay.
I think it's good that you bring that up because I think social media, and I know you brought this up earlier, it's an echo chamber. And I think that ability to really express yourself and also defend your own point while understanding another person's point that is conflicting with yours is a very valuable skill that atrophies over time without use. And social media,
Yes.
you're going to get two sides of the coin. Well, you're going to get two sides of a coin. And it's not either, it's not confirmation bias and then the opposite of that. It's your confirmation bias and also content that is opposite of your view but being disproved in some way. For instance, like if you're a conservative, you would have been introduced to left-leaning or liberal ideas in the format of a Charlie Kirk video where he's immediately debunking it. So that whole skill set of being able to accept another person's opinions or ideas is already wiped out, because that reinforces the idea that you were right and that there is no other way to think about this.
There was I was reading a book a while ago, and I think I mentioned this in the last episode. It honestly might have been Pythagoras. I'm not sure. If somebody that's listening is able to correct me, I think it was Pythagoras that started his school, and it was the first philosophical school that focused on reinforcing or supporting each other's ideas and strengthening the overall, I guess you could say, discipline of philosophy, instead of disproving each other. Okay, this is why you're wrong. And so it created... It's just this really cool idea of, well, what if we combined our minds in a way of building and supporting each other, finding flaws in each other's thinking, and then building more and more upon that to elevate our minds, instead of, well, you're wrong. Why? Because I said so and I don't think that way. I think a lot of that you're wrong comes from just emotions. I think people grow up being emotionally attached to their perspectives, especially because a lot of times our perspectives comes from our parents. It comes from home. And so in a way, maybe unconsciously, when people challenge our perspective, it feels like they're challenging our connection to our parents. I don't know. That's completely a shot in the dark, but
I like that perspective on that. I don't think there is I couldn't come up with any other way to kind of describe that feeling of where that emotional charge that people get when their perspective or their beliefs is challenged in a way. It seems to be a very strong emotion that a lot of people feel, and I don't know. It's a very good food for thought, because I really don't know why. Not in a personal sense, because I can feel the same way. I have felt the same way personally, where the ideas that I do believe in are being challenged in such a way that it makes me upset. Not in the sense that I'm gonna shut down and then, start attacking, putting cotton in my ears and pretend that they're saying just gibberish or getting verbally abusive or whatever scenario may or may not happen. It's just a very interesting thing that does happen. For something so abstract as an idea or perspective, how much we hold on to it, despite evidence that it not being true or just being challenged, even though that maybe the challenge is worthless in the sense that it's not grounded. It's very interesting. It's something that I have no knowledge in, like academic knowledge in.
Yeah, right. Yeah, same here.
It's food for thought.
An interesting topic. Yeah, food for thought. Interesting topic.
Because that leads right into, how we started off with. I don't know I don't know if that's the official term. I don't really like using the word ideology, because, what the fuck does that mean at the end of the day? It's just a belief, or is it a...
Yeah, and usually ideology has a really negative connotation.
Yeah, it's always used to describe a group of people that are not so savory, or
ideologues and stuff.
Yeah, ideologues, and I think there is a reason why idiot sounds very very similar to ideology and ideologue. And if you were a person who didn't know what ideologue meant, you would think it's a derivative of idiot. It just sounds smarter, but it isn't. It's a totally different meaning. I don't think that was on accident. So.
Yeah, I mean, language, language all comes from, well, you're an idiot, so you're an ideologue or whatever. You can kind of
if you think like that, you're an idiot, you're an ideologue, you know, that type of thing. But who knows at the end of the day. But that's kind of the label that a lot of people are assigned to each other. You can find two people from who believe in two different things, and this is not even just limited to politics. This could be religion, or this could be from another country in terms of politics. This could be any. It could even be about very minute things like best video game publisher or company or whatever, right? Between two diehard fans of like, I don't even know video game companies like that other than Valve and like Nintendo, and those two people wouldn't be arguing with each other to begin with. But both of those people kind of denounce the other person and even dehumanizes them into an ideologue. And that's much worse than now. We've experienced that through history, but it's much worse than now where, let's say I was a conservative and I lived in a more liberal area, there's a chance that if I upset the wrong person, and it may not even have to do with anything with politics, that my way of life is in jeopardy because it is so polarizing to them. It is. I am so detached from being a human to them that I am just that ideologue. I am just that ideology and what that stands for them. It's a very strange thing that's happening now.
Yeah, and it's... I think what makes it part of it so scary in a way is how delusional both sides are when it comes to their perspectives. You were saying how you as an individual, or the fact that you're a human being, gets detached from your ideas. You're a human being, or you could say hyper attached. Like, who you are is your political perspective. And that's just how both sides see it a lot of the times nowadays. It'll be like, oh, you're a liberal, oh, you're a conservative. Or like, that's it. That's it.
They call you
that's the end of the conversation.
Libtard now, right?
Yeah, libtard or conservatard, stuff like that.
Yeah, the labels.
It's just like, yeah, and the labels, at least based on my experience and my reading in a lot of psychology, is you use labels in two main ways. One, to make them more familiar and cutesy. So you have like, your name's Kevin, and I'll call you like Kev or Kev Bone, just like random nicknames. Or and that is a form of like endearment. You're my friend, I have a nickname for you. And then you have nicknames that are meant for dehumanizing. It pulls away from the fact that you're a person and instead places you under, a little repetitive here, an ideology. Oh, who's Kevin? Oh, he's a conservative or a conservatard. And so instead of you being an individual with your own unique perspectives and way of living and hobbies and things that are, from their perspective, positive about you, it's just everything about you goes into this box called conservatard, and I'm going to close it and tape it shut and take a shit on it. And it's just like, oh, okay, so we're just completely ignoring the fact that there's a whole human being outside of that person's political perspective.
Yeah, it's very strange in how the strongly labeled, you are very strongly typed as that, and in certain, just to bring up an analogy from software development, in object-oriented programming, especially languages like Java, there's things that are strongly typed, meaning that pretty much you can't be anything else but that or your parents, what you derive from. So you get basically strongly typed as a conservative. You have no other properties to you. If you were a human, like, those are all lost. You are just this. And there's no other way, there's no other thing you can be.
You are my opponent.
In that way, if that's how they view conservatives, then that's the thing. Like, if they view a conservative or a liberal as an opponent, then every person who has that quote-unquote label is an opponent, which is such a...
It's weird.
It's really
so weird.
It's really, like, dystopian, too. If let's say like 20, 40, 50 years ago, maybe even 60 years ago, you were having this conversation with somebody about about how it is now. Like, okay, well, people are labeled as, the world's split in half, and people are labeled as like this and that because they have differing beliefs. They're not that much different. They just have a few key differences, and they hate each other. It's impossible for one one group of people to accept the other at all. They hate each other, and that's not to say all of them are like that. I'm not going to sit here and say all liberals are very negative against conservatives. I'm not going to say all conservatives are very negative towards liberals. Where they can't hold a relationship. You've heard of so many times where people are like, yeah, my neighbor or my best friend of my entire life voted for Donald Trump, and I removed him off everything.
Turns out he's a liberal.
Yeah, it's like, turns out
I'm not talking to that guy anymore.
I'm never talking to him again, ever. I can't believe this. It's crazy. That's a very crazy thing, but that happens. But I'm not going to accuse everybody being like that.
No,
but
no,
but it's
not everybody. It's just extremists,
Yeah, but it's in the sense, if you told somebody that 50, 60 years ago of how it is, it's, people hate each other and they're very violent, even violent towards each other at times. You would think it's some type of like Nazi movement type of level thing, where it's like, wow, tensions are always really high. There has to be an evil side, but none of them are evil, and they're, I wouldn't say they're killing each other, but they're certainly not hugging each other. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's just like everybody's evil. It just depends on where you're from, and both, mentally and physically.
Yeah.
What came to mind is remember Spore? Remember that game?
Yeah.
And in one of the last stages of Spore, you create like a civilization because you're like, you're going through evolution and you're learning how to like socialize. And then now that because you can socialize, you have tribes. And then there's like an RTS stage to the game where you have like your tribes, and you have like spears and axes and gatherers and hunters and blah 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 blah. And then it's interesting to like think of Spore in this situation, because it's that idea of like, oh, my tribe of whatever abomination you made in Spore for your creature doesn't get along with these guys. And it's like, oh, why? Because they have a different mouth. You know what I mean? It'll be like, oh, they have wings that my creatures don't like, so we have to fight them and kill them. Or we picked a blueberry that was on their territory, and now they're gonna try to wipe us out. That's what I thought of like immediately. As we're talking about like, oh, I don't like you. Why? Because you have this one perspective, and that like goes against me. Like, what? It's just, that's it. That's the whole thing. You know what I mean? It just reminded me of Spore, because it's like, it's for lack of a better way to put it, I would put it under like immature or like primitive. You know what I mean? Like, where does that come from? What are you doing? That the amount of experiences, new novel experiences that you never would have had if you were only friends with conservatives or only friends with liberals.
Exactly.
New, like, very unique experiences just get thrown out the window. Oh, I'm only friends with conservatives because blah, blah, blah. Well, you're throwing out a lot of, to be quite honest, there are some really fun and really cool liberal ideas, and same with conservatives. They also have really fun or really unique experiences that you wouldn't get if you were only one or only the other.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I think it being not primal, maybe that's the word you used, I'm not sure.
Primitive.
That's literally how, ancient history was. Well, think about it this way. How many times has, like think about the Bible, or think about war, the Crusades or something. It's like, well, why are we doing the Crusades? Because, you're on the land that I want, that I think is holy for me.
Yeah, the Crusades was Christians and Muslims, right? Yeah.
And then you have other times in history where it's like, okay, well, you don't believe in the same God as us, so we're just gonna either switch, or we're just gonna fucking kill you. It's like,
yeah, there was a. Sorry.
No, you can go on.
There's a movie called Kingdom of Heaven, I believe is what it's called, and it's heavily based. It's like 3 hours long. It's heavily based around King Baldwin having rulership of Jerusalem, and the Muslims wanting to take it back. I wish I remembered. I'm actually gonna look up his name. Saladin.
Yes.
I should have known that. Duh. So yeah, it was in the movie. It was Saladin and King Baldwin. Those were like the two main people that were like against each other. And even though they were against each other, there was this scene where Saladin comes in and they're talking to each other, and King Baldwin makes the point of, if we have this battle, we're gonna lose thousands of lives, and it's, you know, it's just a waste of time. And they have the whole debate, and then they end up not having the battle. And Saladin at the end of it, completely disconnected from politics, from religion, from dogma, he says, I'll send you my best physicians, because King Baldwin had leprosy, and like his skin would like peeling off and all that kind of stuff. It's just a scene or that I thought of that reminds me of this. It's like, no matter what, we'll have, you know, peaks or moments of humanity, but it really puts into perspective of how extreme we can get over the strangest things, in that case being religious dogma. But even then, Saladin and King Baldwin spoke to each other as human beings. They didn't, at least in the movie, I don't know how it actually played out in history, but they spoke to each other as human beings outside of religion, outside of whatever other aspects of their cultural background. It was cool. That was like one of my favorite scenes from the movie, and it'll always be a memory that I keep in mind.
Yeah, I've seen that scene as well. I never watched the movie, but it's a very good anecdote to bring up. It's almost like we can't, modern society can't do that anymore.
I think it's just because it's so easy, you know? I mean, you pick up your phone. Imagine my phone is almost completely like de-Googled. So I open my phone and I see a home screen that's just blank, and it has my most used apps, right? But if you think about it, most people, you know, they open their phone, boom, newsfeed. Hey, this guy just got killed, or this or that. And it's like, well, I don't blame you for clicking that and then realizing it's this person's fault, or this political side's fault, or this or that. And then, you know, you constantly hear about that, and then you start clicking certain ones. So then the algorithm starts recommending you more that coincides with or aligns with your perspective. And then out of nowhere, without you even being aware of it, you know, you're only seeing things that agree with your perspective, and you don't even know that. I think that's also like another thing about it.
Yeah.
People don't know that when you open your phone, there's an alert, and you click that, boom, that got fed into a data server that said, oh, they clicked this, they actually found this interesting, boom, recommend them more that has that perspective. That happens. And I don't think a good amount of people understand how, well, for one, invasive that whole system is, but also persuasive.
Yeah.
You know?
I don't realize how damaging it is, actually. I don't know. Those algorithms, I love it how we keep circling back to social media, just because we know how, you know, how much of it is a titan. And we also do blame it a lot for, you know, for the most part, it is somewhat the people's fault. But
yes, yeah.
Those algorithms are just so, I don't know. Sometimes I'd like to think it's fault for a lot of the struggles that we have as a society nowadays, because a lot of the problems we are having are unprecedented. We've never had this problem. You know, these are completely new things that just never had been thought of. You know, TV, like, yeah. Okay, we're going to broadcast on TV, and it's not always going to work because, you know, everybody has a free mind, and people are going to disagree, and they're not going to like the TV. So they're not going to watch that channel anymore. They're going to find their own channel that, you know, vaguely fits into their preferences or views, and then you can get into the idea of, like, whatever, right? The copies. But social media is kind of the sense that you're not really exposed to contradicting ideas. You are only exposed to things that you want to see or hear, the things that won't really upset you that much. And if it does, there's always like a remedy for that. If it does upset you, it's going to upset you for the same reasons every time. It's never going to upset you for anything different. It's going to be like, there was this law that was passed that stops this or that, something that you kind of feel passionately about. And
yeah.
No, you can go on. I got to collect my thoughts on that one.
Yeah, I would consider it like when it just comes to like imagining it. I've met a good amount of people, and I know a good amount of people, or just read about them. People who don't socialize, and they just kind of like talk to their immediate family. To be direct here, my dad, as we grew up, he was always very open, very supportive, and he didn't really care about politics. He just cared about people's health and wellness. And he always made sure, I remember his big thing was like always making sure we were hydrated. And he always made sure he was hydrated. But as we got older, my dad, social media didn't really exist. It was there, but it was like AOL and AIM and all that kind of stuff. As we got older, he started disconnecting from socializing with people on a daily basis. And instead it was only talking to like me or my sister or my mom, maybe our uncle, and 1 to 2 other people. And over time, I noticed it had this effect on him where everything was very extreme or nothing. There was no in between. There was the care and awareness or mindfulness of general welfare or wellness of the people around him just kind of faded away. And the reason I mention this is because I see social media as the same thing, because over time, as you're viewing it, as you're liking, as you're saving, as you're clicking on stuff, it's being curated to make you as comfortable and happy as possible. And then before you know it, you're so absorbed and so heavily attached to, oh wow, my perspective of the world really is the one true perspective that everybody should have. When you go outside, or when you go ahead, look at somebody else's feed or hear something that not only goes against what you said, but goes against every single thing that you've ever thought about and ever thought about the world, it's a direct attack on you and your entire life, because you're so, as ironic as it is, social media, I would say it's because you're poorly socialized. I don't think social media serves as a medium for socializing. I think somebody could sit on Twitter, sit on Instagram all day, texting, calling, so on and so forth, but have zero clue how to socialize in real life. They're awkward. They're not sure how to navigate it, so on and so forth. So I guess it's me making a comparison and how those two things relate. And even though it is called social media, you're not really socializing. You got to get outside. You really do.
Yeah, I think social media has decayed a lot of people's minds, and this is, I'm kind of surprised to see that it also decayed the minds of older generations, but our generation as well. And it's like, you're introduced to the world by an algorithm, and then you're gonna believe that algorithm no matter what, which is almost a crazy thing to do. Sort of relevant to what you were just saying. Don't quote me on this, but I did see or did hear about a study that talked about Generation Z and their development over time.
Yeah,
it's not good. A lot of us are developmentally behind, maturity wise. We are not as mature as our parents are, and how our parents are at the age that we are now. And a lot of it has to do with just social media and just those core ideas we're being fed information and a worldview through a spoon. We never really form our own ideas. We hear somebody else's like, oh, I really like that idea. You know, I agree with this guy. I don't know. I just agree with it. And then finally, you don't socialize with people, not in the way that we're meant to. So you have these really weird abstractions that happen to us where, you know, like how are you socializing nowadays? You know, you're leaving comments on people's posts and that's like your hello and getting to know somebody. Like it's
Yeah, I talked to a bunch of people today. I talked to like 45 people today.
We got a group chat. We send each other memes all the time.
Yeah, it's like that's okay. Just to make that clear, that's completely fine.
Yeah,
you got a group chat. We do the same shit. It just comes down to you just got to be okay with people that don't enjoy the same things as you.
Yeah.
You don't have to. I remember there's an archetype inside like every dude, and it's like the lover. And men who have a broken lover archetype, they feel the need to to connect with everybody, even strangers, on like a really deep level. And it just like that's what I thought of. It's just this idea of I think a lot of people have a part of them that's less developed than it should be. We can be extremely developed logically or objectively. We can be very smart people, have very high IQs. If you're a listener, that's it doesn't really matter which side of the political spectrum or whatever that you're on. You can be an incredibly intelligent person, but at the same time not be as developed in another aspect of your individual. Just to like give a direct example would be I understand a good amount of psychology and like drug addiction, mental illness, how diagnosis works, so on and so forth. But on a subjective level, in terms of handling and managing my own mental health, I'm not too great at it. So that's like a really good example of I understand this stuff like pretty damn good. I got it down. But in terms of actually figuring myself out and putting it into practice, I haven't mastered that. And so I think that translates into being more open and accepting of people that may not agree with you. You may be more developed in one way and think you're, oh, dude, I'm like really smart. I know all about this stuff. If this guy doesn't agree, he must be an idiot, all around idiot. No, not at all. It's just his perspective is just different. It's as simple as that.
I know we're running out of time, but I'm happy you brought that up with, you can know you say that you know your psychology pretty intimately.
Yeah.
But it's the fact that we may know, we've studied, let's say you've studied addiction, but you're still addicted to something,
Exactly.
You don't know the answer. You may know the answer and the reason why, but it doesn't give you the ability to fix that. And
there's always the human aspect.
And that's something that should probably be another episode about that human aspect of the limitation of ourselves and what it means to be human and what the difference is between our brain and what we would call a machine. But to stay on task here, I think it's just really important to know that because a lot of people from each side of any spectrum believes that they have the solution and that they can implement it. I think a really classic one is like communism, where the next guy always thinks that he has the answer for it. It's like, guys,
this time it's going to work.
It's going to work this time. Swear to God, guys. It's the same thing, and a lot of us don't understand that. A lot of us don't really grasp the idea that knowing is not enough. Knowing the problem and the quote-unquote why it's happening is not enough. If that was the case, we would not have any problems at all. We know our economy very well. We know politics very well. Maybe politics is not a thing you could really intimately know, but we know the things we need to succeed as a society. We know what humans need and how we thrive, but it doesn't work out because there's such a human element to it that it's
Yeah.
not binary. It's not either on or off. It's quite literally such a complicated tree that we should be more compassionate to when we see it in other people. That if we genuinely believe that this person's thoughts are short of something, right?
Yeah.
And we shouldn't be so rude of it. And if they don't believe that they're short of it, we should be accepting of that. You don't have to be friends with that person. You know, if you really don't want to be friends with somebody because they believe in this, go for it. But there's just a sense of respect you should have for everybody and their opinion.
Right, exactly. And when they don't agree and you're not able to get along, it doesn't mean that they're a bad person or that you're a bad person. It's literally just, it's okay to not get along. Like that's an aspect that I feel like a lot of people, especially chronically online people, just don't understand. You don't have to get along with everybody. And when you don't get along, that doesn't mean that there was a mistake or a problem. There doesn't have to be a problem. It's just, oh, we didn't get along. Why? We see life differently. It's that simple. He's a good person. They're a good guy. We don't agree. That's all.
Don't see eye to eye.
Right.
That's probably something that so many facilities that it's interesting how you can archetype those problems of acceptance because some people are too accepting, and at the same time, very what's the word? Very the opposite of accepting. I don't know what non-accepting is not, or unaccepting is not the word I want to use, but that's the word I'm trying to say. But I know we both had experiences with people who are very stuck. They're very accepting in kind of an external way, but there are certain parameters where if you meet that, you are immediately given the boot. You're like, no, we're not accepting to you, and in a very brash way. So it's very interesting how we're split in the middle of that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's I think we've done pretty good in saying our concluding parts, our conclusive thoughts. Well, we'll end it here. As always, thanks for coming on, Kevin. It was nice having you.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure. It's always a good time.
All right. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'll see you in the next one.